Okay. So, this weekend, myself, Tammy playing Ragerlin, Siobhan playing Iman, Hippie Kicker playing Umaga, and Brody playing Skull all went to go visit Underworld Galerdain, which is the local Edmonton chapter that we've just like really not had time to engage with as much as maybe we would have liked in the past, you know? It's just fallen on like inconvenient weekends for us, or like not all of us could go, and we kind of wanted to go as a group, and you know, all that kind of thing. You know, it just kind of hasn't worked out since it turned from Calidor to Galerdain. That we haven't been able to make it. So this weekend, sort of, you know, the fates aligned, and we wanted to go, and especially Tammy wanted to go, Ragerlin, to play her character, because she has to run the game and at Xenostrand, so she doesn't get a lot of chance to like play. You know, it's like the GM who never gets to play a character. They always have to play all the NPCs. So, you know, that's kind of her vibe. And she's like, I want to go out to the game. And we all made the time to go out to the game for her, you know. Was kind of the vibe. I mean, we wanted to go, but still, it was mostly to play with Tammy. So if you don't know this cast of characters, Aeryn is my like spooky witch wild elf from the Gen Vespin, the Wasp tribe. Ragerlin is Tammy's like spear wielding, very angry wild elf, Gen Vespin. And Iman is Siobhan's like sort of cleric of the goddess of the hunt, weaver of the goddess of the hunt, Woodfey. Maga is Hippie Kicker's Furbolg, or Amrath. They used to be called Furbolg, now they're called Amrath, but they're like cavemen, basically like big, dumb human types, who likes to stab people, like a big stab caveman. It's his character, basically. And Skull is a Gen Vespin shaman, so Gen Vespin with some magic power, who follows Sybil, so is closely tied to Iman in that way. So that's your sort of cast of local character, or not local characters, but characters from my end this weekend, you know. Characters that came and visited with us. So that was our convoy. Getting there was the easiest trip we've ever had to make for LARP in the last recent amount of time, because we're used to driving like 5 hours to go to Xenostrand. It takes 1 hour to get to this game. It's an hour away, basically, at a campsite near Edmonton, because it's the Edmonton local game. So the trip was like, we are there. Oh. Yeah, all right. You know, it's like really fast. So that was kind of good. You know, I'm kind of into that. Makes the trip a lot less harrowing. When we got there, we were trying to set stuff up, and like they had a bunch of cabins, like heated cabins, sort of like a summer camp, but like, you know, nobody goes to summer camps in the winter, so LARPs rent them because they have heated cabins. So we set our stuff up in our cabin, which we took like the one on the end of the row. We hung a sheet with a bunch of blood all over it, like outside, because we're horrible people and we want everybody to know we're horrible people. And you know, put up our various banners and that kind of stuff. Decorated the inside with like an altar to my witchcraft stuff and an altar to Sybil's stuff for Iman and Skull, and Umaga, actually. Umaga's also a Sybil person. And sort of like got all that set up, and we had time to do that because it didn't take very long to get there, you know, rather than being like a million years of like Holy fuck, getting out there is really difficult. It only took us an hour, so that was, you know, that was like kind of, yeah. Always a fan of Aeryn's cabin decor. I appreciate that. Yeah, so we you know we set all that stuff up and we got ready for game. We narratively what sort of happened next. Well, there's orientation, which I think is probably the longest orientation I've ever sat through at a LARP game. It was pretty long. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. It was very thorough. Lots of things were explained. And I'm sure there are more new people that like need that explanation at Galerdain because it's a newer guild and what have you. But for me, I was like, I could have been decorating during this, I think. Probably. I could have been setting more stuff up. But I, of course, didn't want to, like, ditch the orientation. That, I don't know, that feels bad. It was pretty long. And then we got in the game. We came in through the Skyne Gate at the far end of the town, which is, like, when you're coming in to travel from somewhere else, you come in through the gate, you know. Because all the towns in the world are sort of connected. Well, not all the towns, but like towns with gates are connected by the gates made by the Skyne Dominion. So you can just like travel easily between vast distance locations. So anyway, we came in through the Skyne Gate and like wandered up the path. Sort of milled around a little bit. Met some people that we knew from other places, people who recognized us or, you know, wanted to say hello, those sorts of things. I feel like our gang marching into town turned a couple of heads, maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way. I wasn't really sure at the time. I had brought nothing of mine with me except for my imp, who can dark pact me, or my friends, you know, because in this guild, I am, like, because the level cap of this guild is way lower. So in this guild, in Galerdain, I can only cast Witchcraft, and I cannot cast my highest level spells, level 9 spells. I also can't read rituals or do any ritual magic, because of the cap on the level. So I have to reduce my character's stats down to underneath the level cap. Because she's much, much higher than, like, the highest person in this guild. You know what I mean? So the cap is like a little bit lower. So I can only cast Witchcraft, and I can only cast Witchcraft, and I can only cast up to level 8s. So having my imp with me to cast Dark Pact is really important because it is a life spell. And all life spells are like level 9 spells, which is the level that nobody has. So having one in my pocket was really, really helpful. And so I left everything behind, because I didn't know what kind of reception I was going to get here in Galerdain. I didn't know if when I came through the Skyne Gate, there's going to be a line of people who are like, kill the witch, you know, and then, like, we'd have to run back through the Skyne Gate and go home, you know? So it was a little bit like, I'll hedge my bets, I'll bring none of my items. If they kill me, they'll find a frog. That's it. You know, like, I don't know. Should be fine, basically. But that didn't happen. Obviously, we came into town, we set up, we got our things all sorted. I don't remember exactly what happened on Friday night. Like before we sort of went to we were walking around, and then Ray disappeared after hearing some fighting somewhere, and she came back with an unconscious guy. Basically. She came back holding an unconscious man and, like, dragged him out in front of me and went, Shaman, what should we do with it? This one's for you. You know, like, she went and, like, got him from somewhere. I don't know where she got him. I think the new players were, like, debating whether to kill him or not, and she just walked up and, like, picked him up and brought him over. It's like, Shaman, do what you need to do with this one. And I went, oh, right, yeah, of course. And then I just started, you know, doing the count for pulling his guts out, and casted my dark entrails spell on him, which gives me a dodge. It's like, you know, divination by entrails, like, what's it called? Harumancy? I don't remember exactly what the name of the... There's a name for divination by entrails, but I don't remember what it is. But basically this spell is that. It's called Dark Entrails. You killing blow someone by pulling their guts out, and then you cast a spell and you like read their guts and you get a dodge. So it's like adding a defense to my character. So basically Ray was like, you don't have your dodge. Here, take this guy. Do it. And then yeah, just fucking gutted him. It's great. It's perfect. And this was like in the middle of the road, by the way. This was not in some dark corner. She brought me an unconscious dude, and we just did this in the middle of the street. like, Aeryn is of the opinion that if you don't know she's a witch by now, you will eventually know she's a witch. And if you'd like to do something about it, please, come and talk to me, and I'll be very reasonable in explaining to you how I'm a good witch, and not a bad one. But yeah, I actually wasn't even sure if this character was a player or not, because I don't know the NPCs. I didn't know the NPCs or the players, like, at Galerdain. This could have been, like, some poor new player or something that I did this to. But Ray said it was for me. I trust that Ray has done correctly. I didn't know, like, if he was a player or an NPC or what. But it turned out he was an NPC, so that's fine. It's fine. I didn't cause any trouble right at the beginning. That would have been bad. But so we did this in the street, and then we kind of just left him there, looted him, left him there, and the body dissipated eventually, because that's what happens in Underworld. The strength of spirit eventually, you know, either they die their final death and their body stays there, or they dissipate and they come back through a resurrection circle. That's how it works. So Friday night, we went to the tavern for a bit, hung around in there. Iman overheard some conversation, which will come back in a later part of this story. And then I think we were thinking about going to sleep. Pretty much, like, there were some interactions, but nothing that, like, strikes me as I really have to tell you all about this thing that happened on Friday night. It feels like Friday night was a little bare. I was looking for some combat, and it just, like, there wasn't a lot to show. Was that when there were, like, some spooky children, or was that in the morning on Saturday? I don't remember, but one of the two. There are some spooky children controlled by witches, who were, like, coming into town and like hitting people, and they're these kids, and when you kill kids in Underworld, they don't resurrect, because they don't have the strength of spirit to resurrect. And they were being all spooky and childlike and attacking people, and some people were being really hesitant about it, like, oh no, it's children. And we were just like, they're children who are attacking us. Kill them. Kill you, Skull. Kill that one. You know? And, like, we don't care. They're kids, but they're kids who are trying to kill us, so I don't give a fuck. For the first night, it was really, really icy and, like, super slippery, and just, like, generally the conditions were super bad. So there was some curse that was making us, like, move slowly. It was basically, like, an in-game reason for the local witch to have cursed the region so that nobody can run. So that you won't, like, fucking run and biff it on the ice and crack your head open. So there's, like, this curse over the town, so you couldn't run. Yeah, I mean, my reaction to everybody who was like, well, their kid's controlled by the witch, I turned to, like, people who were telling me this and went, if you have a witch that has this much ready access to children, you have a bigger problem. Do you know how useful a child's soul is in witchcraft rituals? Because the answer is very useful. You know, like, they got a bigger issue. If the witch is sending fucking children corpses or whatever, curse children to attack us, and they have a surplus enough of kids that they can do that, they're casting some really bad shit, like, back at home. Aeryn is very well versed in all of the witchcraft stuff. She's seen in-game sort of like lists of every witchcraft ritual, and she's seen, you know, like everything that you could know about witch stuff. And children, or more technically, creatures, or not creatures, but sentient beings that do not have the strength of spirit to resurrect, are like doubly as good as a sacrifice than anything else. If you can get a kid or like a baby and drown it in blood, great. It's doubly as good. You get 2 favors instead of 1, you know? It's bad. It's bad for everybody involved, you know? When I say that you get 2 favors, I mean that you could make a ritual 10 times as likely to succeed on your next ritual, if you wanted to, by doing this. Sacrifice a kid, drown him in blood, next ritual's 10 times as likely to succeed. That's the kind of favor you can get. Usually it'd be 5, but you can do it twice, so who cares what level the ritual is? Who cares what level you're capable of? If your dark, you know, master appreciates the sacrifice, you can do it. And like I was having these conversations and people were like, oh, okay. There were various points during the weekend where I got sort of like the, oh, you have expertise in this. Why don't you tell us what you know about this thing, you know? Which is cool. I really appreciate Aeryn being sort of an expert on this stuff. And I knew that this town had a witch problem, which is kind of why I came. Witches and demons are sort of her areas, obviously. And she has killed many a bad witch in her time. There are previous stories, if you would like to hear them, on the VODs and on my YouTube channel, if you're not familiar with the, you know, with that whole deal. What's the game setting location-wise? I usually don't address chat while I'm telling stories, but this is important if people don't know. Underworld is like a dark fantasy LARP, you know? And this game was set in a town called Galerdain, and the surrounding environs. It's like a little village, you know, like newly set up. So the idea of the whole setting is sort of like dark vibes and fantasy. So we got elves and dwarves and all that other crap, you know. All right. Well, continuing with what I was saying. Friday night passes after that with some whatever. We checked the notice board in the tavern, and on the notice board there's a big sign that says no demons and no demon deals. And I'm looking at it as Aeryn, a person currently like half of what she does is bargain with demons. And I'm looking at it like, okay. Well, I haven't seen anybody who's enforced that yet. Cool. Just looked at like and I was like, yeah, this sign will definitely stop demons from showing up. Good idea. Put the sign up. No demons. They'll see the sign, they'll go home. You know, like, just making a joke with my crew, you know, as you do. We were checking the rest of the notice board, and there was one that was like, please return our children to us. But there wasn't like a way to return them. There wasn't like a bring them to a certain location or a certain person or anything. It was just like, please return our children to us. They're lost, Ajanti, or whatever. There's like a little sign. I didn't actually read it. Ray read it and then acted on it. But every one of the Ajanti children that we killed dropped an Ajanti child corpse. Like, because the corpse doesn't dissipate. It's just a kid's body, right? Because it can't resurrect, so it's just a corpse. So Raedrelin was like, well, we have to return them, and then just pinned the bodies to the fucking notice board on top of the notice. She just like nailed the bodies up on top of the notice, like, here they are. They were gone when we went back, like the next day. you got to keep in mind that, like, when you get a tag, it's about this big, and it's hard to translate into, like, the actual size of the object, so we just pinned the tags to the notice board. But in character, that's basically like nailing a bunch of child corpses to the notice board. So that happened. Then we left and headed to bed. And we were about to go to bed, and I was like, well, I have to visit the privy. Go to the bathroom with, like, and Iman came, and so did, I think Skull came as well. I can't remember. But, like, three of us, I think, made our way to the bathroom. I think Ray and Umaga stayed in the cabin. But on our way back from the bathroom, somebody came up to us and was like, "There's a we know where the witch is, and we're gonna go kill her right now. You want to come?" I was like, "Well, I was gonna go to sleep, but I really like killing witches, so yeah, let's go. Yeah, I think that's a good idea." I mean, I didn't say it like that, but that was Aeryn's thought process. The answer was actually just yes, and then you know, off we go. Because somebody said they know where the witch is, which is that's a big statement. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's go find her and fucking murder her. So we trek our way out into the woods, and I would like to explain to you that the path in these woods was about this wide. Note that my shoulders are about this wide. The path in the woods was about this wide, and everywhere else was like knee or higher deep snow. And this is like in the woods, in the fucking middle of nowhere. And thankfully, it was a bright night, or I would have been blind as hell and stumbling through goddamn thigh-deep snow. But yeah, it was not like a fun trek out into the woods, keeping your balance and stuff. Like, this path hadn't necessarily, it didn't seem like it had been cleared as far as we made it up. Like, the people in the front were making the trail as we went. It was like really hard walking. And you know, and like pushing forward into this place, and it was like fucking far. It was far in that condition. If it had been summer, I'd do that walk fucking 17 times a day, no problem, back and forth. I'd camp out there. But in winter, in this condition, holy fucking hell, I am not a fit person. I'm gonna be the first to admit that. I'm not fit. I am a thin, weak nerd, like many LARPers. And it was a pretty long trek out into the woods. I did not appreciate it. My feet were fucking soaked the first night. Great. That makes the rest of my weekend super fun. Thankfully, I had the right gear. My boots were really good boots, so they kept the water out, but once the water gets in over the rim, I mean, what are you gonna do? Like, snow melts inside them, and then you get wet boots. But my socks were these new socks that my parents had got me for Christmas, that were like these hiking, trekking socks that were like waterproof. But holy shit, without those, I would have been miserable. I would have been miserable the rest of the weekend. It would have sucked total dick. Because there was just like no way to avoid it. If you wanted to go out and interact with this thing, you had to trek through all the snow. There was no option. And people who were like worried about their knees or worried about like their fitness, like not allowing them to get out there or whatever, or like whatever reason, didn't want to get their feet that wet, like that kind of stuff, like IRL. They just like didn't get to interact with a lot of things because everything happened out in this fucking wood. Anyway, so it's dark, it's nighttime, we're trekking out to the place where these people say that they know the witch is. There's like an Einhar leading the way. And we get there, and there's nobody. There's nobody there. We trek all the way out there, there's nobody there. There is a witchcraft circle there, and I get a whisper in my ear from a shaper that's like, you recognize a witchcraft circle, because they know I'm a witch, and they know I'm a ritualist. They know I would know that stuff. They're like, you recognize a witchcraft circle? It's very recent. It's just been cast. That kind of stuff. Their blood is still fresh. So on. Because a witchcraft circle is just like a circle of blood. Like a rope covered in the blood of like somebody who's cut their hand and just like run it along the rope a whole bunch of times. That's how you make a witchcraft circle in Underworld. So I recognize that it's a circle. I step inside and, you know, pontificate upon it for a few moments. And people are like, well, what can we do? Can we destroy it? And I'm like, do you have an arcane counter magic? Do you have a witch hunter who could destroy it? And they're like, no, we don't. And like, I know for sure they don't, because the level of the game is too low to destroy rituals at this point in time. Like, the level cap means that getting a level 12 occupational is like not possible, basically. I'm like, then no, you can't destroy it. And I like smudge it with my foot, and nothing happens to it. Like, it has been cast. I could cast another ritual on top of it were I capable of doing so here. It is a circle. It is here. It's available. But we can't get rid of it. But we know it's here. And I'm doing all this, and Iman goes to try and track the witch, right? Because if the circle is recent, like I said, that means she must be nearby. Whoever, or they must be nearby. Whoever the witch is must be nearby if the circle is fresh. And so she goes to track the witch, and she comes stumbling back to me like, I thought I saw something, but I got all turned around, and I don't know in which direction it was, and I'm not sure. Like, I was following, and then I got lost and wandered back to you, you know? And for me, as Aeryn, I'm like, well, that's another witchcraft circle. Because there is an augment you can put on a witchcraft circle called Trivial Pursuits. That means that when somebody finds the circle, they cannot lead back to the circle. Like, you can never remember where it is. Whoever you are, when you run into the circle, you cannot get back there by the same means that you got there before, and you cannot lead people there because you've forgotten where it is. You know that there's a circle, but you don't know where it is. That's the way the, like, augment works on the circle. For, like, tricking people and making sure they can't, like, come back and ruin your shit. That's what it's for. But so I was theorizing that she'd wandered into another circle. And that this circle was a decoy, or, like, a new, fresh one. Casting a witchcraft circle is not difficult. Even Aeryn could do it, like, 4 times a day. If she wanted to. And so that there, we sort of theorized that there was another circle somewhere else that was, like, more upgraded and sort of, like, fully ready to do a lot more bad shit. But there was no way we would find it because of Trivial Pursuits. So we basically just had to go back. It was a very disappointing trek. I'm not gonna lie. It was fucking shit. Like, we went up there, we found a circle, and that was it. And then we went back. Not worth my wet feet. Like, really not worth. But sometimes you don't get what you want. I was hoping I'd be able to engage with this witch, or, like, converse with them, or have a taunting match, or, you know, something. I was hoping for something. What are you gonna do? So, we headed back to the town, and, went to bed after that. So that was it. I was thinking to myself, like, maybe she didn't show up because there was too many people. If there had been less people, maybe we would have been able to, like, find her or chase her or something. But I don't know that that's necessarily true, obviously. I don't know anything about the plot side of that. I just know what I saw and what happened. And it was that we went up there with somebody who was like, I know where the witch is. And, like, we followed them, and then there was no witch there. There was a circle, but no witch. So that was our Friday night. And we went to bed, and we slept pretty well. and got up sort of late Saturday morning. There was some fighting to do. There were these like green-veined individuals who were like these corrupted people or something. I don't really know the story behind them. I don't think many people have any idea what the story is behind them. They seem like they're clearly a consistent threat in Galerdain because I've seen them like before or heard tell of them before, even in other guilds. But they just sort of keep showing up. So we fought some of those guys. All they dropped was green blood, which I kept some of, obviously, because who knows if that green blood is valuable to a demon. It could be. But I'm not able to get in contact. Well, I don't want to get in contact with my demon here. I'll do it back at home with the green blood and see if it's worth anything. So yeah, we killed these green guys, and it was like one of those things where this was sort of late Saturday that this was happening, and everybody still had their skills, and we killed these guys in like a couple minutes. I heard tell that these guys have been a problem before, like in terms of the fight, that fighting them is really irritating, and that they're like tough and annoying to fight. But that like we basically dispatched them in very little time, the town as a whole, because everybody still had their skills left, and it was getting late on Saturday, and we were getting ready to like reset skills, so people were willing to burn them. Some other fun things that happened on Saturday. I can't think of the like chronology of how Saturday went because it was a blur. There was a point in Saturday where we went and had a nap for 4 hours and missed nothing, according to what our one teammate who stayed awake, Skull, saw. Like, he went to a dark seance with, or not a seance, but like a dark church meeting with some of the players and talked about a light god, because that's the way he is. That's what he did. But it was player driven, So, earlier on Saturday, we came across Ilias. Ilias is an elf who you will have heard about in other stories, I guarantee. If you've listened to my other stories, you know Ilias. He is a Gen Ursa, a bear tribe elf. A little bit naive, a little bit of a dork, a little bit overeager, just in general. But he's been doing, like, better and better, and, like, more and more. And he owes me, or us, I guess, as a group, he owes us, like, a visit. Because we offered, like, him food once. We offered to, like, have him over for dinner, basically. And he rain-checked it. So Ray went over to where he was staying and, like, opened the door, and he was, like, the only one in there. And she goes, like, Ilias, a year is a long time. A year is a long time to make a rain check. He's like, oh, so you want me to do that now? Or you want to do that soon, then? And she's like, now, come for tea. And he's like, okay. And, like, comes over to our cabin, and we have some tea. We've got, like, a kettle with us and a bunch of cups and some tea. And, we sort of sit around and drink some hot beverages in our decorated cabin. It felt very thematic, And we were talking to Ilias about some stuff that was going on. Ray gave him a gift, which is like a necklace, because he's given Ray stuff in the past. Ray gave him a gift that was a necklace, like a Gen Ursa necklace. It's like themed with the Gen Ursa stuff. It's got Gen Ursa markings on it. It's got a little bear on it. This kind of stuff. As sort of like a gift, right? But then she saw that he had other markings on his face, because the Gen Ursa markings are like these markings along the jawline sort of thing, these big spiky markings along the jawline. But he had another marking under his eye, which is like a green one, right? She's like, well, I guess I'll give you this gift, but I guess it doesn't mean anything anymore, because you're not Gen Ursa anymore. You're other stuff as well. You're more than one thing. And he's like, oh, yeah, the Crow tribe marking, yeah. And we're like, loyalty is very important, Ilias. splitting your loyalty is a very bad idea. If you were Jen Vespin, adding another marking to your face of another tribe would result in your death at the hands of every loyal Jen Vespin. Basically, like, you can't choose two tribes. You can be one tribe. That's it. Like, in the mind of the Jen Vespin. You know, you can't be bear and crow. You can be bear or crow, but you can't be both. You know? So it's like, you can't have multiple markings. He's like, well, I didn't exactly want this one. I'm getting married, and my bride is a crow. And they went, really? Who's your bride? She's like, and he's like, oh, this one person. I can't remember her name, but I know her by, like, memory. I'm like, isn't she a high elf? He's like, well, the crow tribe adopt. I'm like, so they forced a crow tribe marking on you because you're mated with a high elf that they also want and have given a crow tribe marking. And he's like, yeah, they kind of knocked me out and then put it on my face. And the whole cabin erupted in like, what? What? They knocked you unconscious and tattooed you? You know, like, that is a violation! That is a fucking, like, huge problem! You can't be drafted into a tribe. You have to join it. We were, like, mind blown by this shit. Like, holy fuck, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. Once everybody quieted down, he's like, yeah. I didn't really ask for it. And I went, I can remove that from your face right now, if that's what you want. And he's like, oh? And I went, it's going to hurt, but I can do it. If your choice is to have it off your face and be Jen Ursa only again, I can make that happen for you. I won't force you, obviously, because I'm not like they are. I don't knock people unconscious and change their markings. But if you want, I can fix it for you. And he's like, hesitates a bit, waffles a bit, and then goes, yes, I would like you to do that. And I'm like, kneel. And he kneels down. And and I take out my dagger. Or actually, he gives me his dagger, and I use his dagger, because that's the best way to do this. And then I proceed to dramatically, like, I grip his head and, like, hold really tight into his hair and just, like, fucking cut the skin, like cut it off, you know? With a fucking knife. And then healing magic would, or a remedy would, like, heal it back over, you know? It was like, he was gritting his teeth and, like gasping as I'm just, like, forcing this fucking knife across his face. Obviously it's all fake, right? Like, while I've got my hand, like, wrapped in his hair, basically, like, so he can't, like, move around. And all of this is, like, it's play acting, right? Like, I'm not actually, like, forcing myself on him or doing anything that could hurt him. I'm, like, putting a lot of tension in my arm by, like, pulling, like, in rather than out with his hair. And like, you know, like, shaking as I, like, press this knife across him. Like, I'm trying to make it look good, right? I don't have any fake blood, because that would have really done the trick. I didn't bring any, because I wasn't expecting to do this. But, yeah, it was a good little, like, 30-second scene, you know? And afterwards, he like, removed it with some makeup remover and stuff, and we healed it over, and it was fine. And then, you know, he was a lot more sort of, like, he was just Jen Ursa again. And I said to him, if you don't like staying with people or being with people who don't respect you and who don't respect your choices, who force themselves upon you and change your markings without asking you, then I offer, of course, up to you a place here. You can stay with me. When I am nearby, I offer you hospitality. Don't think you don't have options, Ilias. You don't have to stay in places that disrespect you. Stay with me, and I will offer you advice and send you on your way. Your choices will be your own, but you'll also be under my protection. You know, it's kind of like how I went about it. Trying to offer him, like, on an in-game and an out-of-game level, like, if you want to stay somewhere else, you can stay with us. You know, you can be with us. That's okay. I don't, like, we want you. You don't have to be terrified of us all the time. I mean, Alchemy and Ink in chat says, stay with me and let me disrespect you. No. Stay with me and let you do whatever it is you do, and I will help you. You know? Aeryn's help is not always savory, not always easy or even right, but it's offered freely and without, and you have to choose it, right? You have to make the decision that you'll listen to her, and if you listen to her, then you might go down a path you don't want to go down, but you have to make the choice. Right? That's the thing. So this was all kind of a bonding moment. And Iman actually inducted Ilias into her braid. So technically, he's very... Oh, well, that's later, though. We'll get to that later, I think. Because it's much better in context of the like, stuff that happens in between then. Okay. Other thing that happened on Saturday was we were in the tavern, and Iman had told me that there was this red cloaked girl who had said some things like, there's a witch in town and we're okay with that? Or why don't we, like, we should do something about that. You know, like, being very sort of like, oh, you want to tangle with me? With Aeryn? You have a problem with me? Like, that kind of stuff. And Iman had overheard these conversations and told Aeryn about it. And we don't know the person, obviously. We've never met them before. There's a Galerdain player that I don't know. But Casimir is there. The dark elf weaver of Dietramin, who owes me lots of favors. And I say to Casimir, Casimir, have you heard anyone speaking ill of us? He's like, oh, well, there's always something, shaman. But, no, nothing serious. And I went, the one in the red cloak, sitting over there at the table with all of those others. Iman tells me she said some things about wanting to do something about the witch living among us. He goes, oh, well, that doesn't sound very, polite. And I go, no, it doesn't. Why don't you go over there, Casimir, and tell her how incorrectly she's been thinking? Why don't you go over and speak to her, not on my behalf, but of my reputation? I'll consider it one of your 9 favors. He's like, all right, sounds good. And he walks off to the table, and I'm having a conversation with Iman and Ray, and I'm listening to the other conversation that's happening at the other table, you know, while we look like we're talking to each other in the corner. And I'm hearing Casimir go, I hear you've been saying some bad things about the shaman. Now, she may be, she may be as you've heard, but what you don't know is that she's also a decorated war hero, and she has helped thousands, if not tens of thousands, people survive insurmountable odds and like all this other stuff that he just like builds up this fucking epic tale of how I'm like super badass, but like badass for a force of like neutral or good. Like it was really weird to hear him extolling Aeryn's virtues as a war hero, because I mean she kind of did a lot of stuff that could be considered war hero-y on like Amaranthia and whatever. Where she like killed this big witch and like helped fight the brood and blah 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 blah, all this other stuff, but she doesn't think of herself like that, obviously. But yeah, so he's talking about like, all this stuff that like, and you can see the girl in red, she's like shrinking down like, oh, somebody heard me like say stuff and like it's coming back to me, and at the end he goes, I think you should apologize to the shaman directly. I think that's the only way you're going to resolve this bad blood. And if you don't, she might hear of this a little more unfavorably, and then, well, we don't know how she'll respond to the threats. She's a very direct woman, I recommend that when you go and speak to her, you bring tribute. Something to offer with your apology. She's like, oh, well, what kind of tribute would be acceptable? And he says, it's not about the object. It's about the gesture. Now, I've given you all the advice that I can. Go and speak to the shaman soon. And then he leaves, and he comes like back over to me, because she gets up and she leaves to go and get whatever it is she's gonna offer me, right? And he comes over to me and he fucking bursts out loud. Casimir's like laughing at this, like, oh, it went so well. And I'm like, I look forward to her apology, and all that kind of stuff. And then we sort of separate, and she comes back in, and it's me and Ray standing there, and she comes over to me and she's like, shaman, I was wondering if I could talk to you for just a second, and I went, yes. She said, I should apologize. I said some things about you that were less than respectful, and I brought you this. And she like offers up a bottle drum worth 2 gold is the tag. I take it, I hand it to Ray, and I'm like, she like continues with her little apology, and she's like shrinking, a little bit, and she goes, I said some things that were a little less respectful. I don't know you, and I don't know what you've done, and I don't know who you are, and I made judgments based on what I heard about you from other people, and I wouldn't want you to think ill of me. And I go, apology accepted, but just know that when you talk about me, I hear it. You think you can talk privately about how you're going to deal with the witch without it coming back to me? It will, and I'll know. So here's my friendly advice. Learn things about people before you start spewing nonsense. Maybe come and talk to me before you start talking about eliminating the witch. I'll happily show you that my witchcraft is uncorruptive and done with restraint and respect for the land. And she's like, of course, yes, of course, And I go, and when you disrespect me, you disrespect my tribe. you should also apologize to Rachel. And she turns, you know, she turns and she's like, I'm terribly sorry that I disrespected Aeryn. You know, I disrespected the shaman, I disrespected you and your tribe, and I don't want any trouble, and everything's fine. I'm not going to do anything. It was idle talk. I didn't know you well enough. Like, that kind of stuff, you know? And Ray gives her a nod, because that's what Ray does, you know? Like, grim nod, with, like, an angry expression. It's perfect. And she turns back to me, as if she's, like, gonna leave. And I go, see? Now we can be amiable. I'll even offer you a spell. Would you like a protection? And she's like, and I can see in her head she's going, this is a witch. She's going to give me witchcraft. Do I accept it? I'm a shiny little healer. You know, like, I can see her brain ticking for a couple of seconds, you know? And then she goes, sure, and offers out her hand. And I ignore her hand completely, and I reach over and I grab her cloak, her red cloak, and I, like, give it a little pull, you know, just to put a little pressure on it. And I go, I summon a hexagram contingency sleep, next strike, and I let go. And I say, that is a spell that will protect you from the next thing that hits you. Whatever it is, it will be cast into a deep slumber. She goes, oh, thank you, shaman. Well, she goes, oh, yes, I'm going to go now, if that's all right. Be on your way. And she walks off. What I forgot to mention was when she stuck her little hand out, it wasn't that she stuck it out and then waited. She stuck it out and she was going like this. Like, her adrenaline, the real adrenaline, must have been up. Must have been way up. Which I love so much. Because I never intended to hurt her. I never had a plan to do anything about it. I just heard her talking shit and wanted to make sure that I did something that, like, helped a new player with an experience, provided a role-playing moment, you know? And it worked out just how I wanted. Just how I wanted exactly. And everybody walked away from it, and nobody had to get stabbed, and it all worked out great. Yeah. I feel like it was at this point on Saturday that we took a nap for like 4 hours until the evening. There was not a lot going on. We took a nap, and we got up a little later, and we were doing stuff, and then Iman disappeared, and we noticed that Iman was gone a little while after that, right? And Iman was like the only one of us that we couldn't find, and we searched the whole town. We asked a bunch of people where she was. Nobody knew, right? And I was getting a little bit worried because, like, I didn't want her to get hurt, right? I knew she'd be safe, but I didn't want her to get hurt. So while we're looking for her, she emerges from the woods a little while after we've, like, searched everywhere. She emerges from the woods and comes over to me and goes, Aeryn, like, I spoke to the hag. And I went, what? She went, I didn't have time to tell you. They were going up there, and I had to follow them. And I spoke to the hag, and she said she doesn't want to talk to you. You know? She said she isn't interested in anything that you have to say or anything we have to say, and she just wants to destroy us. I was like, all right. Well, that ruins the negotiation somewhat. And she's like, I did get into a little bit of an argument with the Furbolg, or the Amrath, Umpto. He, was trying to tell me what to do. Aggressively. And so I bound him. And nobody came to help him. And I think he was a little upset when I didn't do what he said. talking about how we were visitors and how we didn't live here and we didn't have the right to mess with things. And I'm like, all right. So you bound him. Nothing else happened, did it? Bind is a spell, by the way, that wraps your arms to your sides. That's the only thing it does. Like, you just can't use your arms. So it's like sort of harmless, other than the fact that you're bound. But Amto did not take this very well. There was a period after this where, like, things got a little worse because, what was it? Like, yeah, she disarmed him, because he was getting aggressive. There was a period after this where things got a little worse because Ilias disappeared for a little while, and Ray had Ilias's stuff. She had, like, his spear and some of his stuff that, like, she had gotten from him so that he could go and do, like, some praying in the woods or something. I don't really know. He went away for a little bit, and she had his stuff for him. Everybody, this rumor spread so fast, like fucking wildfire, that we, as a group, had murdered Ilias. And that the little Gen Ursa had been killed by the Gen Vespin, and we'd taken his stuff, you know? And so I'm sitting in the tavern, and Casimir comes up to me and sits down and goes, Shaman, do you know where Ilias is? And I went, no, I don't know where Ilias is. And he's like, well, lots of people seem to think that you and the Gen Vespin in general killed Ilias. I'm like, why would they think that? Why would we kill Ilias? He's like, well, Ray has all of his things, and she doesn't know where he is, and people are asking, you know? And of course, Amtu's been working people into a fucking frenzy, probably. I don't know fucking what's been happening. But I guarantee his reaction to being bound was, I hate them all now, you know, like, oh, my ego has been bruised, you know, so I must violence, right? The kind of stuff. So they're like, well, he's gone. And I'm like, do you think that if Ray had killed Ilias, she'd be walking around with his things? Do you really think she's that much of an idiot? Alternately, do you think if she'd killed Ilias and she wanted you all to know she'd killed Ilias, she wouldn't be walking around with his fucking head? Gen Vespin don't lie, Casimir, and you know me, and we have talked many times, and you owe me a great deal. Do you really think if I knew what happened, I wouldn't tell you? You know, that kind of stuff, right? And he's like, of course, Shaman, like, of course, you know. I'm not accusing you. I don't even think it's real. I'm just trying to ascertain, you know. Being very diplomatic, Casimir style. He's quite good at it. And he's quite good at talking to me. He knows how to deal with Aeryn, right? But it's at this point that Umtu comes fucking trumbling up. And he's like a big caveman. That's the deal with Furbolg. They're like big cavemen. And he's like, you know where Ilias is? I'm like, no. I was just talking to Casimir about the same thing. He's like, you kill Ilias? Or he said a bunch of stuff. I don't remember exactly what his words were, and I'm not going to fucking go through it like I know specifically because I don't want to provoke anything. But he said a bunch of things that basically accused us of murder. You know, like in a circumspect kind of way. And I'm asking questions like, if I knew where he was, why do you think I wouldn't tell you? Like that kind of stuff. And he's getting like belligerent. And I turn to him and I'm like, is this going to be a problem? Am I going to have to kill you? Because I really don't want to start things, but you're getting on my nerves. I'm talking to Casimir. And even Casimir's like, you should just quiet. You know, I'll deal with this kind of stuff. Because I was getting fucking pissed. Like, I'm getting accused of shit. I haven't done anything. I've been nothing but helpful. You know, like, all this kind of shit. And I'm getting all this crap. And so this conversation kind of ends without anything happening. Like gets all offended that I threatened him, and then walks away, says some stuff that fucking pissed me off, and then walks away. And Casimir's like, well, I'm sure he'll show up. Ilias will be around somewhere. I'm like, he's not in danger from us. And he gets up and walks away. And then Skull and Umaga come in, and I tell them about this stuff. I'm like, Amtu was a disrespectful fucking piece of shit, basically, and he said some things I didn't like, and you should be on guard, you know. And Skull and Umaga are like, yeah, okay. Immediately after this, Umaga goes outside with Skull, and walks up to the cabin where Amtu is sitting on the porch, right? Where Amtu is sitting on the porch, and Umaga, who's also a furbolg, a big caveman with a fucking temper, you know, and the violence to back it up, goes up to Amtu and goes, "You say bad shit about Shaman again, and Umaga turn you into shit." You know, like threatening him, basically. You know, and Amtu's like, you know, gets belligerent. And then Umaga turns around to walk away, and one of Amtu's people, the Cog, who's like this gnome that works with Amtu, goes, "Yeah, you walk away." And that was a bad idea. Because Umaga, this big violent caveman, has made a threat, and you've just called him on it. So he turns around, walks back up the steps, and like is in the face of the Cog, and they're yelling at each other, and then Umaga just bodies him. Like, just bodies him with one hit. And then he turns and bodies Amto, and then he gets pushed off the porch, and then turns and bodies the next guy who comes at him. One hit each. That's it. 3 down. You know, like, the guy is fucking crazy. You know? You've inspired violence in the big furbolg. But it didn't work out well for us because it created like a situation where it was like one side against the other in terms of the town like being very there's a lot of like PvP shit that started going on, you know, where people were like taking sides and forming lines on various sides of town, and shit was going badly, you know, like in general. Umaga really sparked it off with the triple murder. Of course, none of those people died, and Skull actually helped diffuse the situation, like getting in the way of Umaga continuing to murder people and like healing the Cog and all that other stuff, you know. So it wasn't an outright murder. Nobody died. They just got put on the ground, you know. So anyway, all this shit goes down, and then we sort of sequester ourselves back in our cabin for a little bit to talk about what's happened and like relay all this information, because I wasn't there for that. Umaga did that, and then I heard about it secondhand, you know. And so we went to our cabin to talk about all this stuff, and Ilias came with us, and so did Hope, this like Woodfey healer who knew us better than the rest of the town and stuff. And it was at this point we were talking about like what we were gonna do and all that, and if they came through the door, what the plan was, and that kind of stuff. And Ilias talked about like that he was gonna join Umto's braid at some point, which is like a shaman thing. And our response to that was like, what? No. And then Iman offered for Ilias to join her braid instead. For Ilias to join a braid with a bunch of elves, you know, in it. For Leandra, the god that Ilias follows, the mother of elves. A braid that respected him. A braid that didn't treat him like crap. All that other sort of stuff, you know. And he did. He joined Iman's braid in like this little ceremony that we did here in this cabin, you know. Yeah. I think Min was also there. Min is a dragon, dragonborn. Are they called dragonborn in Underworld? Yeah, I think they are. Dragonborn who is Min wasn't there? She was there. When was she there? She was there at some point. There was a lot of us. Yeah, she came later. Okay. All right. I'll get to it. Draconian. That's the thing. Yeah. Anyway. Never mind that. Ilias got inducted into the braid, and then Ray and Ilias and Skull went to, because the guards showed up. The town guards showed up to like deal with this, and Ray and Ilias and Skull went to go deal with it. I think like talk to the people who were. I don't know where they went. I know Skull went to go and talk to the like guards and tell our side of the story and stuff, but I don't know where Ray and Ilias ran off to necessarily. Because what we did was we stood in the center of town and we waited and we listened. And if anything fucking happened in that tavern, if there was any violent sounds whatsoever, we were gonna bust in and fucking murder everybody. I was like getting ready for the plan of like, okay, if the town wants to start a fight and we actually get in a fight with a bunch of people, I will go cabin to cabin and kill anyone who fucking stands in my way. You know, I was getting to that point where I was like, okay, well, if this is going to be PvP, it's going to be PvP. Anyway, we stood out in the cold and waited, and eventually Skull came out and said, like, you know, this is the stuff that's happening. They're not happy that Umaga stabbed all those people. They want Umaga to die as retribution. They're not really after you or you, but they want Umaga. And I'm like, no. You don't get, you don't get my family without challenging me. That's not how it works. If I don't protect my people, what am I really worth? Sort of thing. And so the guards came out of the tavern and they came over to us where Umaga was standing with us and went, Are you Umaga? You big guy? And he's like, yeah. He's like, what happened, Umaga? And Umaga's like, he tells it all completely honest. He's like, Umaga went over, Umaga say, you talk bad to shaman, Umaga turn you into shit. Then Umaga walk away. Then Cog say, oh, Umaga scared, Umaga walk away. And Umaga made threat. Umaga turn around, Umaga turn all three of them into shit. That's like, he just says it like that. It's like, so you stabbed first? And Umaga's like, yeah. Okay. Well, obviously that's bad. I'm like, they provoked a furbolg. They're really so stupid that they think they can just say anything to a big, violent idiot? You know, I say with Umaga right there, he's like, and they'll get away with it? And he's like, well, it doesn't really matter. You stabbed first. Words are words. Stabs are stabs, you know? And I'm about to get into this big argument about how, like, we helped heal them and, like, it's bullshit that they would, like, call for Umaga's death or whatever. And Umaga just takes a bunch of gold out of his pocket, puts it in the guard's hand, and goes, there, take sun metal, you know? And the guard's standing there like, yeah, that'll do it. And then, like, walks away. And that was the end of it. Like, guard-wise. That was it. Like, we paid our reparations, you know? And Umaga turns to me and he goes, Umaga stabbed lots of people while law chiefs are around. Umaga know how this work. Sun metal for law chiefs. And I'm like, well done. And like, we disperse, you know, and go back to the cabin. Because at this point, it's like, let's just drink and hang out in the cabin and do some roleplay and stuff. And I think it was at this point that Hope and Min were studying their healing in our cabin, because they had one spellbook between them. They were studying it. And so when we went back in, Min was in there with Hope, and she just kind of joined the party. Min, the Draconian. Yeah, and so we went back to sort of just, like, hang out and party. I kind of, like, drifted in and out of the party. I was, like, sleepy and very stressed, and, like, the stress was all leaking out of me, you know, because of this PvP situation. And we still didn't know if they'd take, like, retribution on their own or whatever. Oh, at some point on Saturday, there was also, like, some demons around. Like, there was, like, a demon mod. But it was, like, the only thing I saw that whole evening. So, I don't know. There was a big party happening at like the Bard Circle or whatever with the rest of the town, but we had our own party in our cabin, you know. And there was some talking and some, you know, like lots of laughing and just like generally like socializing with our little group. And we found out that Min has the shard of an elf inside her for some reason, like during one of the rituals or something that they did to save a bunch of elven shards from the Mordegeist. Min got one as like a backlash or like a splash of like bad magic or whatever. But there's an elven shard inside Min. Had she gone home at this point? Wow, like whatever. It's like we found this out somehow, and Min had already left, and like somebody, it's like Ilias had let us know that that was like a thing that had happened. And we knew we'd have to talk to Min later because Iman's been looking for her shard. And if those shards are the same, that may be very important, you know? But so that's a little like side point. Like the elven shard is like the elven soul. The shard is important because elves are reincarnated using the shard in terms of like the shard enters a cycle. And if the shard is destroyed, an elf is removed from the cycle forever. That's like the way it works, you know? So like the shard is the elven soul. And Iman used to be an elf, so she had one at one point. But anyway, she's been looking for it, and we think that maybe Min has the shard we're looking for because she's not an elf, and maybe we can get our hands on it and give it back to Iman. I fall asleep at this point. I doze off while everybody chats and has a good time. And it comes around to Sunday. And Sunday morning... What happens on Sunday? There's a little bit of a like skirmish. And then we hear that there's some witches up by the Resurrection Circle doing some ritual. And so kicks off the like final mod, you know, where we have to trek back up through the snow and stab a bunch of witches, and there's a bunch of fighting going on and what have you. And it's kind of a typical final mod in that like it's just a bunch of big NPCs that we have to fight, and there's demons and there's witches, and I found the fight a lot easier once I decided that having wet feet was okay. Basically, like, again, it was these, like, forest paths with, like, really big, like, snow on either side, and if you wanted to go around anyone, you had to step in, like, knee-deep snow to do it, so everybody was filing up in, like, the single file line, and we ended up just, like, fucking running in this really deep snow to get up to the fight and get around behind people and what have you. I honestly, like, I don't really have much to say about it. It was a last mod. It was a combat mod. There's really not much that like I can say about it that really changes anything about what happened. You know, we ended up killing a whole bunch of witches and some demons, and then we came back to town, and Iman had a conversation with Min. I let them do that on their own because I didn't want to get in between like the idea of this person with their shard and this person whose shard it might be and stuff. Like I didn't want to be in between that. So I had heard that one of the dark elves wanted to speak to me. So I went to go talk to them. This dark elf named Kaith, who's the current like dark elf leader, she comes up to me and she says, well, Shaman, I was hoping to talk to you about, you know, working more closely together. Our two houses are, you know, like, we've always sort of just left each other alone, but I think we can build on that and become sort of allies and stuff. And she sort of builds this foundation for us working together in the future. And it's nice to have this kind of conversation because Aeryn's always up for making new friends, you know, and people who will appreciate her expertise and that stuff in general. Not to mention I already know most of her house members, so it kind of like worked out. Oh, funny story off to the side. Rashik, who is a dark elf that I've known for a very long time, and is a very good alchemist, I gave him a contingency sleep on his cloak the night before Sunday, like Saturday night, while he was sitting with me while everybody else was out hunting a vampire or something that never came to any fruition, which is why I didn't mention it. I gave him a contingency sleep. And the next morning, he had to honor duel Ilias, who was the champion of House Vatic or whatever, for the right to marry the person he wanted to marry. And that contingency sleep ended the entire duel, and he won because he had the contingency sleep. He literally did nothing. Ilias hit him. Ilias fell asleep. And that was it. The whole duel. They came up to me after and were like, "You sneaky." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "Well, Rashik won the duel." Like, "What duel?" And they're like, "The duel for Branwen's hand." Okay. It's like, Ilias got put to sleep by your spell. And I went, oh. I facilitated a marriage. Great. You know, that kind of stuff. Just like a little side story. But that's kind of how the game ended. I was talking to a dark elf about, you know, like alliances and stuff. And Iman was talking to Min about getting that shard out of her and maybe putting it back into the right place. We found out that it definitely is Iman's shard, so we need to get it. But, you know, that'll happen later. That's for later, because the game ended before we could really do anything about it. I feel like that's sort of the synopsis of, like, what happened at the game. I will say, from a post-mortem perspective of like the game in general, that I think the PvP stuff happened because there wasn't enough stuff to kill. PvP kicked off because people were bored. Umaga hadn't used his skills and he wanted to use them, you know? Like, people were tense and like combat characters wanted to combat, and so PvP stuff started heating up. That's, you know, that's kind of how that went and why that went, because there wasn't a lot of mod stuff. It seemed like every time there was something, I missed the hook, or if there even was a hook, I like missed out on everything. Like, if there was anything going on. It seemed to me very barren of like content in general. All of my good interactions, all of the good shit that happened to me at game, all of the fun, cool stuff was interactions with other players. There really wasn't that much like NPC business going on. And like, I don't want to rag on them, you know what I mean? Because like, I don't know, maybe stuff was happening that I just like didn't see or whatever. But I think that's kind of the jam. Like, it was pretty boring. It's not a game that I necessarily think maybe I'll go back. There were some great interactions with people there and like making some alliances and stuff, and like feeling like maybe I had created a foothold for myself like within that community. But there is such a vocal, maybe minority, but a vocal local populace that is like, you are visitors, you're not allowed to interact with the game in the same way that we are. We live here, this is our home guild, and so we should get all the plot. And I'm like, my thought on that, like, and that's an out-of-game thing, like, that people believe, you know what I mean? And that sucks. That sucks total ass, because we all paid the same $80 to go to that game. Why should my content be gated because I'm a visitor? I understand that I wouldn't get any personal plot or like anything directly from plot that's like related to my character specifically, because yeah, I don't live there, you know, like it's probably not going to come to me directly. But trying to prevent me from using my skills to help you because you want to be the fucking man in the sunshine and have your big ego validated because I'm a visitor and you're a person who lives here, fuck that shit. Fuck it real hard. That is some garbage, and I would never treat someone like that. Never. You want to come over and play where I play? You're welcome to do so. You fuck shit up? You fuck shit up. Right? Like, you get in the way of plot that's happening, that's what happens, you know? And just because that is true does not mean you can gatekeep your own fucking content away from me. You can't be like, oh, you're a visitor, so you get to watch while I'm the hero. Fuck you. It really pissed me off. And that seems to be like a thing there. That was the vibe I got. Like in and out of game. The visitors of second-class citizens. And fuck you if you want to visit. Because you don't get to interact the same way. I was pretty mad. People in-game told me, like, well, there have been these people who have visited and they've done some stuff that has, like, not gone well for the town, and they've done this other stuff and whatever. And so, yeah, there is, like, an insider-outsider mentality, and I'm like, I can't believe this is real! Like, I cannot believe it! Like, I heard that story from, like, 8 different people! Yeah, it's really annoying. It's almost like it's part of the game that people from other chapters might visit and stuff might happen. Maybe if you engaged with them and cared about what they were talking about, stuff might go differently. It's not like I'm strong-arming you with my badass high-level character. I'm leveled down to be there. You want to stop me? Stop me. You know? Fuck. And it sucked because we didn't do anything that was, like, destructive or shitty or even try and get in anybody's way. I was there to help. I wanted to help them with their witch problem. I'm a witch expert. Aeryn is a witch demon expert, right? Like, she's there to help you. But because you're so scared I might steal your fucking glory, you treat me like shit. And you treat my people like shit. And I don't fucking brook that. Because in-game, that's fine. I'm fine with people treating me like shit in-game. That's fine. I'll take that in-game and we'll be mad at each other in-game. Because that's the game. But when that's the vibe out of game, that is a fucking issue. And whoever's in charge of that community should maybe consider that that's a really bad mentality for your players to have. Just saying. Again, I don't want to rag on anyone. I don't want to get fucking super angry. But people need to fucking deal with their shit. You're not always the hero. Everyone should get a moment to be the hero. All the people. You're not... Just because you live there doesn't make you a bigger, badder hero than the people who are visiting. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It's the same if you visit Xenostrand. It's the same if you visit fucking Storm and Zell. Right? You're included in the plot. You exist in the world. You interact with things in the world. You know? Doesn't matter where you're from. It's not like the local guard is gonna... Or, fuck, more likely. It's not like the local witch is gonna be like, well, you don't live here, so I'm gonna talk to this guy and you go away. That doesn't make any fucking sense. You know? Like, any sense at all. And yeah, if you want to attract... like, people who want to play your game more consistently, maybe when they play the first time as visitors, they shouldn't get treated like fucking garbage. Because it doesn't make me want to come back real much, you know? Is all I'm saying. And maybe I will, because, like, I had such a good player experience. Like, my player stuff was really nice and really... It felt good. Like... I was very tense. I felt very emotional. There were a lot of moments where I was, like, very high energy. Like, very pent up. But some of that was out of game, and it didn't feel good. You know what I mean? When there was hostility. That hostility felt like somebody's ego got bruised because they couldn't be the hero or do the thing they wanted because somebody else was there to do something else. And that pisses me off. That's it. Right? Like, don't treat visitors like crap. Because when you do, you'll get less visitors. And when you get less visitors, you get less people who want to play your game. Yeah, hello, welcome to McDonald's. Oh, you ain't from around here, are you? Next, you don't get any McDonald's. Like, I paid $80 to go to the game. The same $80 any local paid. Get fucked. You don't want me to use my skills because it might interrupt you feeling like a badass. That's your fucking problem, not mine. I didn't bring anything overpowered. I didn't roll into game with 17,000 magic items. I didn't step on anybody's story. I enjoyed being consulted for my expertise. That's what I was there for. People came up to me asking, like, well, what's the deal with this witchcraft? What could this mean? What's happening here? And I got to have those conversations, and it was so good. But when it comes to engaging with things, no, you stand at the back. Us people who live here will go first. We'll do the thing. It also especially sucked, and this is like, I'm spilling a little tea here in terms of like the way that my game went. But it also really sucks that like somebody tried to address the out of game like feeling they were having through someone else at game. Like they told someone to tell us that they were feeling shitty out of game. But like, what are we supposed to do about that? Like I don't know. It was like basically the content of what we've been told was basically the content of what we got told was that person feels bad because you stole their thunder. That's like, how out of game is that our problem? But it makes me feel guilty and shit. And because I'm thinking of it out of game, now my in-game shit is all skewed up because I don't want anybody to feel like that. If I had never known that that was the case, we could have proceeded in-game with a conflict that would have been fun. You know? But because out of game I knew their fucking feelings were like hurt, or they were just feeling a little like frustrated or whatever, that was an out of game feeling and not an in-game feeling. I'm a nice person out of game. I don't want you to be frustrated with me. I don't want you to not enjoy the interactions that you have, whether they be positive or negative. I want at the end of game to shake your hand and say, that was a great game. Well played. I really enjoyed yelling in your face. You know, like, and I hope you enjoyed yelling back. You know, like, that's the kind of shit I want to have. And it did not feel like that. Do not treat visitors like second-class citizens. It sucks ass. And I highly recommend that that attitude stop. That's just my recommendation. You don't have to take it. Nobody has to listen to me. I'm just ranting about my feelings. I've told you the synopsis of everything that happened at game. This is how I felt about game. I felt that there was nothing going on. I missed every fucking mod hook if they even existed. That the stuff that did happen seemed to happen like, I don't know, there were some witches and we killed them. That was kind of as far as it went for me. Like, I couldn't ascertain a motive. Player versus player stuff kicked off because people were bored. And I had lovely interactions with a lot of cool players. And I think that that was like pretty much the only thing that really even makes me want to like look at it again. That's it. That's how it is. I'll cut off the VOD here, and then we can talk about it more specifically on the live chat. I'll answer questions and stuff. But here's where the VOD ends. Thank you, people, for listening to the VOD and enjoying the LARP stories. Later.